become a different person to stop those things because they attack the flesh. Because the flesh is weak. I have my morals, right? I trust in the commandments. I trust in leadership. I trust in other people and love. I will lose myself. I will become, somebody who has to go on meds. But because I'm going back to that place where I say I'm a slave to the Lord.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. This is episode 3 of the Faith Society. I'm your host, Jose. Next to me is my co host, my dear friend, my brother,
What's
Steven.
up, guys?
What's up? What's up? Man, let the people know what's going on, man.
Just another day, a good week so far. Just trying to go at it strong and everything, no matter what comes our way. We just try to not try, but we do successfully. We go over the hurdles. The only easy day was yesterday. We got to slay our giants. Stay 10 toes down.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, if you guys have been following along with us, last episode we finished up Genesis, and I told everybody that we would be starting the first half of Exodus and really diving into studying that first half and kind of relating it to how it relates to our personal lives and our society today. So, I'm going to start this off with asking everybody a question, something you can think about. And that question is, if you had the choice, would you rather be comfortable but controlled, or free but completely uncertain? Because that's exactly where Exodus starts. These people have been slaves for generations. And when God finally shows up and says, it's time to go, they don't celebrate. They panic. And the crazy part is, I think a lot of us would do the same thing. In Exodus 1, chapter 8, it begins with a new king arose who did not know Joseph. And in Exodus, these people went from, the story is these people went from being honored to being slaves. And over time, that just became normal. So I want to start the discussion off with, why do people get comfortable in situations that are actually bad for them?
You know what? I think it's fair. And I say that because I know it's fair. I believe it is fair that allows people to go back to that which is not a good situation. And it goes back to the statement that you made. What we're working around the topic is getting freedom and being afraid to be free because of the unknown. I think the person who stays in the uncomfortable situation, I think of a dog that gets beat by its owner, but still gets fed. And there's a scripture that comes up in mind to me is Proverbs 26:11. And in the English Standard Version, it says, like a dog that returns to his vomit is a fool who repeats his folly. And I think that's the perfect example right there. I know the situation is bad for me, but this is so comfortable for me. I'd rather, serve in this capacity because the Bible says it right there. I'm not calling anybody a fool, but I think it's a fair as well.
I agree. I think when you look at it in our time, that we're kind of taught not to leave situations, and maybe we don't realize it. But you always hear that saying, "The grass isn't greener on the other side," and I think people use that for multiple applications when it involves their livelihood, whether it be a job that's toxic, a bad relationship, or even an environment that you've outgrown. It just becomes the norm for you because you don't want to see what's on the other side. You're so used to this already. It just feels normal. It feels right. If it somebody can't love me more than this person loves me, even if they're abusive, the mindset is, I'm not going to get somebody who takes care of me the way this person has taken care of me, even though there might be stipulations to the way they take care of you.
Right.
And that leads into my follow up question, and that is, how long do you think it takes before something bad starts to feel normal?
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you. I can see it from a different perspective of what if the person is so accustomed to, something that's bad already that they just chase it. So it's instantaneous for them. And then take it from somebody like our perspective, where we're men and we're older. and we get caught up in a situation that we're thinking that, oh, this is grand, and the next thing you know, what's that Stockholm syndrome? It kind of sounds like, 'cause that's kind of like a Stockholm syndrome issue where it's like, oh, I had no idea that that was bad for me. I just got used to it, and that kind of seems like it can be instant, and it seems like it could take a few years, even a few months for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think when I think it just depends on the situation, right? I see people who you can get into a relationship and break up with somebody 2 weeks later, and that's completely normal. And then there's people who will start a job and know right away they don't like it, but because of the pay or just because they don't want to look for another job, they'll stay there for years, and use the income as an excuse. It's harder to
Right.
leave not knowing if I'm going to get another job or how am I going to pay my bills and staying in that toxic environment. So I think that's
Facts.
a good place for us to start looking into our next segment and focusing on Moses. And if you look at Exodus 3 and Exodus 4, in Exodus 3 chapter 11, Moses asks, "Who am I that I should go?" In this scenario, you have God who is speaking to Moses, and Moses is telling him, like, "Yeah, I'm not that guy. I'm not the one you should be speaking to." And I think this relates to what we were just talking about. And what I want to ask you now is, why do we run from things we're actually meant to do?
Because we don't identify with what it is that we're meant to do for sure. That was the question, is why do we run from things that we're meant to do? Is because we don't identify with what it is that we're meant to do so often than not, especially in the world, which is, speaking biblically here, and especially staying on topic, the ruler of this world right now is in disguise the devil because he plays tricks, and I'm just gonna leave it there. He plays tricks, he plays tactics. So, but he very much has power, and he does a great job at making sure you don't know what it is that you're meant to do. So oftentimes than not, when the calling is, oh, you're meant to do this. Let's talk about the distractions that he involves himself with. The pride of life, I think we spoke about this in the first episode. The pride of life, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes. These things are Satan's tool house, and when you get to a point to where you're in Egypt and you have gold and you have sausage and you have pork, beans, and horses, and everything is given to you, and you're going out to the wilderness to where it looks like you have nothing, but yet something is on the other side of that mountain. All of those three things that I mentioned, the pride of life, lust of the eyes, and lust of the flesh, starts becoming overwhelming. You, Jose, in fact, you can relate to this as fact. You're fasting right now. In the next few days, while your stomach is rumbling, all you're gonna think about is food, and you have to put on a sort of armor and become a sort of man almost. Become a different person to stop those things because they attack the flesh because the flesh is weak.
It's true. Yes. Just so the people know, I am fasting. We spoke about it, or the pastor, spoke about it at church last weekend. And it's something that I felt a call to do. So the plan is to do 3 days,
My
and
bad for
then
calling you out, man. You
no,
start
you good, you
talking
good, you
crazy.
good. No, I don't care. But the plan is to do 3 days, and then we'll see if we can make it through the week, and we'll see how I'm feeling. Maybe we get to 5, but we'll see how it works. We'll see how it works. Back onto the
Congratulations.
discussion. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. When the question was, why do we run from the things we're actually meant to do? One of the things I wanted to touch on is imposter syndrome, and I think a lot of us rather it's easier to be part of a group and not be the leader of that group, because if something bad happens, you can say, "Oh well, we all made that decision," or "Oh, that was somebody else who made that decision." And you see that a lot of times, even in our personal experiences. I'm sure there's been times where I've been in school. School comes up to mind in a group project, and if you're scared to speak, you kind of stand behind the person you feel more confident in and hope that they're the ones speaking for your group. That's a real life example I can think of off the top of my head. And the question I want to ask you is, have you ever felt like you were being pushed into something you didn't want, but deep down you knew you should?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I feel like that became my life in the past year. I don't want to get too deep in everything with it, but kind of in in a situation that I'm in now, I felt like it was kind of hit left field and everything, and I feel like the more I run away from it, the worse off I would end up being. So at first, starting off, I was very hesitant, just like Moses in a way and everything. I was very hesitant, like, ain't no way, until I want to talk about it a little bit more, and I feel my heart saying that I should share this with somebody out there. So give me a moment here. I recall feeling like I was crazy by being pushed into something that I was not ready for and that I didn't feel like I was meant to do because there's just no way. You know, I felt like I was going crazy. I needed validation and everything, and it got to a point to where none of that came. I didn't end up going crazy. I am actually still very much sane, and things are moving in the direction that I'm being pushed into seems to be working out. And also, nobody can validate me but myself and what's in here. There's no voice coming down from heaven. There's no angels. So I'm not going to cap and be like, oh, I looked up to the sky and I saw the dove come down and descended on a white throne. No, what's in here, what's implanted inside the heart here is what I'm following after. The fact that I have my morals, right? I trust in the commandments. I trust in leadership. I trust in other people and love keeps me grounded enough to say that I'm gonna believe in my heart that I'm going in that direction. If that makes sense, because I know a lot of people may feel like, oh, I'm called to do something, but they're always looking for the answer. They're always looking on the outside. They're always looking for, the lifeboat to come. And sometimes it starts with the belief in yourself. So that was my story and everything. So, and to answer your question, yes, I'm currently going through it now, and it's working out for anybody who's going through that season where it's like I got to do something. I feel called. I feel led to do it. Take the step out. Take the leap of faith.
I agree. No, that's the hardest part. Last year, one example I can use is things were slow at work, and I've been with the same company. That company I was with for probably like 7, 8 years, and I was sitting at home for like 3, 4 months, and deep down inside, I knew like I have to leave. Right? It's just at a point where I can't sit at home waiting for things to pick up, things to get busy. My wife is pregnant. We got bills to pay. We got a mortgage. And it took me about 4 months to finally let them know, like, hey, I got to go. Like, I might not succeed out here, but I have to see it. And I just have to see what's out there at this point because staying here, I'm just going to lose everything I have. And I'm not going to be able to provide for my family. And it was a hard decision. I felt like it was the right decision. And that leads into what I want to talk about next. When we look at Exodus and you go into Exodus 5, doing the right thing can make life worse at first. And in Exodus, I feel like this is where it gets real because Moses finally listens to what God is telling him and he goes to the Pharaoh and things get worse for everybody. So the follow up to what we were just discussing is why does life sometimes get harder when you start doing the right thing?
The world doesn't love you. You said it right there. You said life. Life in itself is what you're referring to as life is you're referring to the world around us, everything that's occurring and everything. Everything that we can't control. And it's funny because the Messiah says that this world ain't for you. This life is meant to die. If we're being real about it, is that you are meant to suffer death, first death. You're meant to taste it. We are not promised this riches and glory when we choose to follow the Messiah. Not at all. Actually, this is not the right time to go into it. I know it's not but to answer that question from a biblical lens and a biblical worldview, right, where we're just focused on what the Bible would say to answer this question and not practically speaking. It is because if you're choosing to take on the life of becoming a Christ-like being, you are going to suffer persecution no matter what. And when we're talking about the context of being called to something that you're meant to do. This is what the context of Jose and I are talking about right now. We're talking about stepping into a leadership role. We're not talking about stepping into a role of somebody else is calling you into. We're talking about stepping into that higher purpose here. You're going to face persecution. There's going to be a brick wall that you boom, where you find out, like I said, that inner strength that I answered before, we said there is no wall. David defeated Goliath. The same story that we're talking about Moses right now, it was the generation after them, 40 years later before they walked in. And if I'm calling out names, I want to say my man Caleb was one of them that entered in, and the other one that started with a J. Everybody knows who I'm talking about. Shout out to the one who blew the trumpet and the walls fell down. Listen, they entered in and they were scared at first. They were like, oh, all those giants over there before they entered in the land. They're like, oh, Joshua. Joshua's his name. All those giants over there, we can't defeat them. We can't defeat those giants. We can't go into the land. We can't go into the promised land. And they're like, it doesn't matter because who we are, we're greater than the giant. We're greater. And you keep that mindset, you can overcome that which is the world, which will push back. Because you know why? Messiah said, I overcame the world, so can you.
No, that's real. I agree. Again, I agree. And like I was saying earlier with that example that I used about work, after I left, I mean, it was already difficult, but after I left, it got more difficult because I didn't have a solution. My hope was, to find another job that paid me the same, but I ended up taking a security job making less than half of what I was making just to have some type of income to be able to provide for the simple things. So things did
Right,
get a lot harder, even though I felt like I made the right decision. And it ended up working out because I did get back into finding something that paid me what I was used to making when I bought my home and was providing for my family. But for 4 or 5, maybe half a year, 6 months, it was difficult. And I feel like even now, I'm still navigating my way out of that because even if something ended, even though let's say that season ended for me, it doesn't mean that it automatically,
right,
6 months of struggle and then the very next day it goes back to normal. It's now like you're rebuilding your foundation. That's what it almost feels like. And that to follow up with that is I kind of went into it, I kind of started early, but for you, I guess, since I've answered already, have you ever tried to fix your life and everything got worse first?
You know what? I want to. So before I answer that one fully, I wanted to piggyback off of what you were saying. And when you're talking about your job and everything and coming into it, and it's like, hey man, it's still a struggle. You're still trying to figure it out. What I realized about, especially walking into leadership and walking into a purpose and doing it better, is it's going to come with hard work, especially when you're looking at the word and everything. I know sometimes us as having faith and us as being Christian, we have this relationship with God where it's like, hey, you can do the miracles. I might not have to do it. I'm gonna tell you, chances are more likely than not, especially for somebody like us and everything, where we got kids and we've got wives involved and people we love. The hard work, has to be endured. And and to jump into your question and saying that is 100%, man. It's like I wouldn't say these days it gets worse. These days it feels like it gets better. And I don't know if that's because I've had a switch in mindset finally, or I gave up trying to worry about everything else. And I'm not going to take credit for what I'm about to say here. Things got worse for a while, and then things magically got better because I took a principle. And I'm not gonna. I think it's Matthew 11 and everything. I know the scripture, but it says, "I." This is Jesus speaking. And he says, listen, the lilies of the field, the grass of the field, I clothe them, I make them beautiful. The sparrow goes to its nest. I feed him, I give him a home. And he says, look at you as a human. And I'm paraphrasing. He says, look at you as a human. If I would take care of the grass that burns away in the day and take care of the birds that are, here today and gone tomorrow, and you as a man who is created in my image, how much more will I take care of you if you focus on me? And he says, if you focus on the kingdom and righteousness, all these things shall come to you: food, your shelter, all those things. And I had to finally go ahead and raise my hands and completely surrender to that and say, I'm just going to focus on your kingdom. Forget focusing on being a father. Forget focusing on being a husband. Those things come secondary. Those things are important. But the primary focus that I'm focused on right now is becoming a servant of your kingdom and making sure that you and I are always good through the Holy Spirit. So I finally stopped worrying about, the clothes, the food, and everything. And I found out that to this day, man, I'm okay. I just don't worry about it. I focus my mind on the work. I focus my mind on the kingdom and the work and everything. So I really don't even think about, those things anymore. And I'll tell you this to sum it up and everything, because I want to be very clear and very, precise about what I'm saying here is I lost my wife and I also don't have access to my kids right now. And I thank the Lord every single day that I'm still alive. I don't fully understand why those things are happening. Like Jose says, like things can look worse. And if I have the perspective of taking on my flesh, right? If I take on my pride and my ego and saying I'm a man, I lost it all, I will lose myself. I will become, somebody who has to go on meds. But because I'm going back to that place where I say I'm a slave to the Lord, Job went through it, right? Did Job not get restored, y'all? So I'm gonna leave it at that. You know what I mean?
I think that's a perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about next. And if you're following along with your Bible, we start moving into Exodus 14. And in this situation, you have God telling Moses to stand firm. And they're in a situation where they got the ocean in front of them, the most powerful army in the world behind them, and there's no way out. So my question to you is, what do you do when there's no obvious solution?
Outside of getting on your knees and praying, and we spoke about this earlier. So of course you get down on your knees and pray, and you wait upon the Lord. But I'm gonna tell you this: chances are than not, if you and I, as men and as leaders, are the ones who have to part that Red Sea and have to, walk through it, and there's no turning back, we got to make a decision. You got to make a decision, and you have to be willing to live by that. And if you're rooted in something that's very special, if you're rooted in a higher power, I'm telling you right now, sometimes you may have to flip a coin and be like, God, if it lands on heads, I'm gonna do this. If it lands on tails, I'm gonna do that, and be okay with that and hope he hears you. Sometimes you gotta take faith. I think that's what I'm trying to say, right? Sometimes you just gotta have faith and you gotta have hope that not so let me I would clarify. You have to have faith that you're going to get to the promised land. That's what I'm trying to say. Not, oh, I have to have faith that I need to wait upon the answer, but you have to have faith that you're going to get through the other side.
I agree. And that's something I feel like we've been studying in church recently. And it's important. I don't want us to be the substitute for people, attending church or, things of that nature. I just think this is a great space for us to discuss what we're learning and trying to apply that to our personal situations, you and I, and just worldwide situations. And the one thing you mentioned that resonated with what I've been learning is faith. A lot of times we try to move without even speaking to God. And a lot of times we end up not having the outcome we want. Like I can speak for myself, just making decisions without thinking them through or even asking for guidance. So that's the one thing I 100% agree with you on. And something that I kind of been focusing more on lately is having faith and praying. Like pray as much as possible. It's not going to hurt you. You don't have to spend 30 minutes praying, but 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes there's time. And that's something that I feel like
100%.
is important. Something that I feel like is important is just to make sure you get your prayer in. That's something that has helped me a lot. And I feel like it's pushed away by a lot of people.
I'll piggyback on that and I will join in with you in saying that somebody who's been, years, over three and a half, I always say 3.5 years is a good standpoint for somebody to be a great disciple. I pray every probably 2 minutes. Every 2 to 3 minutes, I'm probably praying. You know what I mean? And what I mean by that is that I'm definitely have mercy. That's my first prayer to go to is always have mercy upon me. Have mercy, no matter what. Have mercy because I know up here my mind drifts. You know what I mean? I will easily drift, and I never want to be unconscious of the fact is like you said, I might make a wrong decision. And especially when you start walking in a leadership position and you feel like you have the weight and the capacity, and perhaps somebody's now I'm not going to say I'm not talking on a deep level here, like somebody's life is in your hand. But let's just say you're meant, right? We're meant to be ambassadors of what Messiah carried. He gave us a role and a responsibility to be. And what if, somebody, anybody who comes across, you, whether it be an angel or not, you're meant to minister to them. Wouldn't you want to have that full capacity of the Lord upon you? So I encourage, like you said, I join in on you and say that pray all the time, ceaselessly, pray without ceasing. You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%. And to follow up with that, in these situations that we're discussing, when you're in these certain situations, and I'm gonna kind of dive back into what we were discussing with Moses and the situation they found themselves in, do you panic usually, or do you trust in God and that faith that you were speaking of?
Say the first part of the question one more time.
In these situations, like how we mentioned what Moses was in,
Okay,
that
right.
same situation that Moses was in when they had that ocean in front of them,
Okay, the
they
ocean.
had
Gotcha.
that military behind them, and God was basically telling them like, I got you. In those type of situations in your life, like the examples that we kind of delved into, maybe even examples we haven't really discussed yet, do you panic usually, or do you trust in in the guidance that you've been given?
No panic. No panic. And again, that's work of the Holy Spirit. That's not work of the flesh. Don't get it twisted and everything. That's work of the Holy Spirit, is work of God. There's no reason for me to panic because what's inside of me here is a greater power. It's not coming from this guy Steven and everything. Yeah, there's Steven in there, and perhaps the flesh inside of me wants to raise up and be like, ooh, and I think because of my temperament now is so lowered, right? Because I decided to take on something else, right? I decided to take my image, put it to the side, and take on an image of Christ. I would say my temperament is so lowered to where it's like, oh wow, what would Jesus do? Oh God, what are you doing in this moment? What is happening? I start talking outside of myself and I start talking around to, like, almost as if heaven is around, and I'm already in the mindset, and I'm trying to, please understand me, guys. I'm trying to get you guys in a practical sense to understand why somebody like me wouldn't panic. I understand that there's angels around, whether I see them or not. Heaven is with me. Messiah says in his own words that I have like at least two guardian angels that are always back facing towards the Lord. So I'm not trying to say I walk almost naked in a way, but man, it's like, what could hurt me that the Lord wouldn't allow to let hurt me? So even if something bad does happen, even if something weird does happen, I'm looking at it like instantly, like, oh Lord, you've already prepared a table for me in the presence of my enemies. If this is a devil, I have power and authority over all unclean spirits, over scorpions, over serpents, and any acts of the devil. I have power and authority given by Jesus. So if I know if it's an evil spirit, not even a problem. If that doesn't go away and that doesn't cancel the assignment, is it me? Because I know the devil has no power over me. It must be of God. It must be a learning situation. It must be that increasing. I must be getting trained for armor. So now I'm prepared for the fight and I'm ready for the long haul. You see, and I'm saying these things I've trained up. It's not me. It's something that already has been told, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna live by it. So no, there's no reason to worry. You know what I mean? I hope I answered the question.
Well, you did answer the question, and I think for me, this is where I'm still walking in learning that faith, because there are situations where I do sometimes, I don't want to say panic, but I question it. And the one
100%.
example I think people can relate to is, even when first starting this podcast, this is the most recent. At the beginning, it made sense to me. As soon as I felt like this was something that I was being called to, I was like, oh no, man, I'm not sure. Just there's probably other people out there who viewers will resonate to more, or will make more sense. Like I said, I'm still in the process of learning the Bible. So I don't want to come off as trying to be somebody who is all knowing and things of that nature. But the more I tried to push it to the side, the more I kept getting called to it. So it's a process, man. It's a process. So I I'm still walking and learning, but I definitely see improvements because we're here, right? We're here now. So
Man, I
So
want to share a
I
story.
think it's good.
Can I share a story real quick, if you don't mind?
No, go ahead, go ahead.
So before everything happened, and my story is out there and everything. I've, I'm not homeless anymore and everything. I'm staying with my mom. Glory be to God. I'm off the streets and everything. But before I got on the streets, I had a four-bedroom, three-bathroom house and a huge backyard. Man, I was like, whoo, you think, oh, you made it, right? I recall when things got started getting shaky, right? And I had to make some power moves, man, like moves I've never made before. This was 2023. Now I've been saved for a while, and my faith was tested because I couldn't pay my rent. And this was before, it got to that point to where it's like I had to get put out. I got evicted, by the way, and everything as it got so bad. But before all that started to happen, I remember I was relying on my tax return, and everything. So I'm sitting there, and I had heard, and I knew in my spirit because my tax, I know what my taxes hit. I do my own taxes. I follow myself, so I know when they hit. But this time around, it didn't come when it was supposed to. And I was already late on my rent, probably about a month already. My landlord's like, "Where's my money at?" You know what I mean? And I've got kids. My light's about to get turned off. I had no money, and I'm sitting there like this. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm panicking and everything. I'm like, who can I borrow money from? Who can I borrow money from? I'm cussing out my wife at the time and everything because I'm like, why is God letting me down? Because he told me everything was going to be cool. And why am I sitting right here, right now? And I lost faith. And God had already told me, He said, don't lose faith in me. Trust in me and I'll provide. And I remember I looked at my wife and I said, I don't think God is going to come through. That money is not going to come. And she looked at me and she lost faith. That money came the very next day when it was supposed to, on the date it was supposed to come. And I was telling everybody it's going to be here by then. And I remember that day when that money hit. I said, Lord, I will never in my life not trust in your word, not trust in you. When you've planted inside me, you told me something true. I will never again. And from that day, I look like a fool in front of everybody. And I'm telling you for a fact is because my wife looked at me and said, I trust you. If God told you so, then he told you. And I looked at her and said, I don't think I heard him. I don't think it's going to happen. And her faith shattered. Her faith shattered. And when it happened, I remember her being in my ear, and I remember hearing my landlord, and I remember them like almost like, "This is not going to happen. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's not working out. It's not working. Where's your God? Where's your God? What's going on?" And I'm sitting there like this, and I faltered, y'all. I gave up. I was just like, you know what? They're right, and it broke me because when it happened, I looked like a fool. I said, never again. So I just wanted to share that to say it's like, hey man, I've been there. I've been in them deep stories, I've been in them situations, but the Lord always comes through, especially when you know it here, bro. Y'all, when y'all know it here and he gives you peace about it, don't let nobody steal that peace. Because he's gonna come through.
I appreciate you, man. That's bro. That's why we're here, man. That was nah. I appreciate you, bro. For real, for real. And I don't even know. It's man. Yeah. No, I appreciate you, brother. That's everything happens for a reason, and even in that situation, like you said, to follow up on it, I probably have, we hadn't discussed, not discussed, we hadn't talked to each other, what, over the last 7 years, 5, 7 years,
Five. No, it was five,
five, is
five,
it,
6.
you,
Because I know I
five,
was
six
just
years?
getting married. I know I was getting married. You laughed at me. You was like, "You getting married?
I
Are
don't
you a
think I
chump?"
did. I don't remember that. I don't remember
Yeah.
that. But,
I still had
but,
the text message low key, y'all. I still had the text
uh, uh, but, and as soon as we connected again, man, it's like nothing changed, bro. Nothing changed. So, I could see the growth in you. I could definitely see that, but it's just our friendship, man. Nothing changed. So yeah, man, that was beautiful, bro. That was beautiful. Um, I think I do want to ask you a question. I think this again a perfect segue into what I wanted to discuss next, is because you mentioned your situation and the miracle that happened.
Mm.
And I think this falls in line perfectly. Like I said, it's like I said in episode one, man. I'm gonna say it a lot, man. I just get chills. It's crazy how God works and this journey we're taking. Because again, I'm gonna let everybody know. Stephen knows the framework of what we're discussing, but he doesn't really know how things are gonna flow. And so the reason I bring this up is because I wanted to discuss, in Exodus chapter 16, 17, we get into Moses leads everybody to freedom. Everybody's free. I don't want to say Moses. God frees them. He feeds
Facts.
them. He protects them, and they still complain even after the miracle. So my question to you, and I think this is something you can discuss well, just explaining your situation that where you were kind of uncertain about your faith, is why do people forget blessings so quickly?
So I know this is gonna sound super cliche, but there was a gardener who went out in the garden and he planted seeds, and some seeds fell on the good soil, some fell on the rocky soil, and some fell in the thorny soil, and some just fell on hard ground. And the seeds that fell on hard ground were picked up right away, didn't survive. The seeds that fell in the thorns, they grew up a little bit, but they were choked out by all of the cares of the world. And the seed that fell on the good soil, it harvested 30, 60, even 100-fold. Now, when we break down of what Messiah used in that parable of what he is saying is exactly that, man. And I'm gonna just let that word finish it. If anybody knows what I just said, if you're familiar with it, you'd understand it. I'll let him do the work.
No, no, no. That's perfect. I think the way we do it is perfect because for me, I like to kind of relate it to our current, you know, culture now, and I believe, and we've mentioned this prior, but I believe social media has kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of neutralized, like not neutralized, but that's the word I'm going to use right now. Our feelings uh, for blessings that do happen, we're so quick. It's a microwave society. It's a heat it up, eat it, get rid of it. What's next? And
Hmm.
I feel like that's why people forget blessings. You can get, like you mentioned, your story was perfect. You could get that blessing, and then maybe 2 months after that, be in that same situation and be upset again, blaming, like you said, like
Facts.
not having faith, not blaming, but let's say not having faith, and you've already were in a situation to where you were blessed. And like I said, I feel all culture is we always want more. We're always comparing our situation to somebody else's situation. And the next question I want to ask you with that is, do you think people are more ungrateful now than ever before?
Yeah, especially with, like you said, social media culture. I call it the microwave culture, man. There's everything got to be like this, right? Everything got to be
Yeah,
fast. I
yeah.
think even us, what we're trying to do here, we have to understand and cater to the fact is that some of the stuff have to be quick. Some of the stuff have, break it down into lower parts and everything, and which is not bad and everything. But you get to a point where now you got AI, and it's like, hey, I don't even have to research for myself anymore. You can just talk to something
Yeah.
and it'll give you an answer. And that's scary because what if that answer isn't correct? Most times it's not going to be correct. And I always would say that humans are going to be the smartest beings ever. I think we should get outside more for sure and explore. The fact is that we can do for ourselves, but everything comes so fast. Everything is fed to us so fast.
No, 100%, 100%. And I agree with you. People, I don't want to say people are ungrateful. I just think people move on quickly, like you mentioned, like that microwave society. And I think in the moment, people are grateful when they receive something or a blessing is upon them. But the next day you go to work and somebody else has a nicer car than you, or somebody making more money than you, or somebody has a bigger ring than you, engagement ring. It's just so easy now for, especially with social media, like I said before, for you to see how other people are living. And a lot of times, that's just a front. That's not even their true story. And I
Hmm.
think what's dope about what we're doing here is, we're putting out our real life situations, it would be easy for us to paint a picture of perfection for either one of us. And I think it's dope that I think people are going to relate to situations we speak of because they go through those situations as well. It might not be exactly the same, but it's going to resonate with somebody.
And to piggyback off of
And
that, oh, go ahead, my bad. I thought you
no,
were
go
done.
ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I would say that I think the reason why we're able to be as real as we are, I think this is what, we're meant to do. I think this is the time. I definitely think the spirit is moving around. I think there's a pot stirring that's like, this is what I want. I want something real. Because when we look at who God called out, when Jesus was around, look who he called out. He called out, like we were talking before. We're not talking about the high class citizens. We're not talking about people who are already on top, sitting in the luxurious seats. We're talking about real people who are doing real things in the practical world. Me and you were, still nine to fivers and everything, and still trying to grind and make it to the top as well, just like everybody else. And yet we're spreading love. So I think it's real. I think it's gonna be relatable for sure.
100%. And I think that mention that not mentioned that segues again into our next our next segment, and we're moving into the middle of Exodus, where um, in Exodus 18, and right now we're in this. Not we, but Moses is trying to do everything himself. If you're reading along with us, if you're following along, and he's falling apart.
Mhm.
And so my question to you is, why do people struggle to ask for help?
I think it's a number of reasons. I don't think it's one clear cut reason for sure. So I'll give it to that. The one that I will stick on, though, that's at least calling out to me is pride. I'll use that as an example. And let's see what Moses was going through, where he was overwhelmed. Moses' unique identity is being the only one called. And he had his brother as well. His brother was called at the time. But I think, Moses' unique identity there was like, hey, I'm the only one that can do it. And that could be a scary place to be in. And I guess I would take a step back and humble myself and say that I'm not the only one called to do anything, right? Because God does it. You know what I mean? So I'm not gonna put myself into a Moses category for sure, because all glory be to God. But first of all, let's say for me, I write a book, and I think the book is great. I think my book is supposed to be out there in the world for people. Now, I can only do so much. Along comes my boy Jose, who's like, "Yo, what's going on?" For all of y'all out there, I would have never thought about starting a podcast. I think the podcast is way cooler than my book. And to this day.
Nah,
So
nah,
so no no
nah.
no 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 no. Listen, there's a scripture, y'all. There's a scripture in Ephesians. It's either Ephesians 6 or Ephesians 3. And it says that your way, so it's basically saying that all of my dreams and desire, you will quantify them. Like, even what I dream of, my best dreams, you will outdo. The best that I think that I can do, Lord, if I trust in you, you will outdo. That's basically what it says in Ephesians. And when Jose comes up to me and he's just like, "Yeah, man, I want to do a podcast, bro," and he's already got the idea going, and all I gotta do is just join and show up. That is way cooler than my book. Listen, I didn't have to do anything for it. It's a blessing. The Lord sent it down to me because I don't know how to do it. I don't have the equipment. Listen, I am not in the capacity to run those things myself. I'm not living by myself. I don't have my own house to set up that stuff and to try to do that. You guys got to understand. So if the Lord wants me to reach a bigger audience, He sends the perfect person in my life. He sends a literal miracle, y'all. So come on, man. Come on. You
And to
talk about
piggyback
needing
on
help.
that,
You talk about needing
yeah,
help.
no, that's perfect. You brought that up because to piggyback on that, like I said, I've had this feeling, this I feel like calling in a sense to do the podcast for a while, right? But I just knew it wasn't something I could do. I could do on my own. It just wouldn't. It just I felt like it wasn't going to click. But I just could not find it in myself to ask anybody. Like I couldn't ask anybody for help. Like I was in that same situation of not as dire of a situation as Moses and them, obviously, right? But I was still in that situation to where I could not ask for help. I couldn't like, hey, let's start a podcast. Like it just didn't sound real. And then you know, like I said, God works in mysterious ways. I think that's going to be my theme. That's going to be my slogan. And you and me started, talking and catching back up and everything. And it felt right, man. It just felt like I can't even explain it, bro. I can't.
It's
Like,
still getting
we'd
better,
be here,
bro. Where's
we'd
the
be here for
ceiling at?
10 we'd be here for 10 episodes trying to figure that out. Like, it just felt right, man. So I'm blessed, man. I'm blessed to have you here for real, for real.
Listen, man, you talk about miracles. Miracles can look real simple. I know you see them written down in the Bible, but you find out it's like practically speaking, it's like, oh snap, the supernatural is happening in the natural. It's not, some magic boom explosion. It's like, hey, that just happened, and it feels good. But you got to call it a miracle because that's what it is. You would have never thought. I'm telling you right now, just like Jose said, and I'll repeat it again. I would have never in 1,000 years. This probably where I'm at right now with Jose probably would have came if I was somebody. You know what I mean? Like if we're talking 5, 10 years down the line is what I would have been thinking about a podcast. Here it is today. It's a miracle, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you. So that pretty much gets us to the middle of Exodus, and I want to end things off with one question that I want the viewers, again, if you want to type in the chat and finish it off with comfort versus freedom. And the one thing I really want to lean on is what we learned in Exodus is, what's one area in your life where you chose comfort when you should have chosen growth?
That's a good question, man. You gonna take a stab at that first?
You want me to?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to hear what you got to say. I always answer the questions.
I might answer them too. For me though, I think comfort. I think it's been an ongoing. It's easy for me is overeating. Like especially when I'm stressing. Like I can say like I've lost and gained weight like 4 or 5 times in my life, right? And I think that process is when things are tough. Like the only thing that I can say is constant that feels normal in a sense for a lot of those situations was eating, and I can't even explain it. It just felt like that's the only thing I can control. Like I can't control how I'm gonna pay this bill, or I can't control how a person is going to react. But it's like the concept of like I know I could get dinner, like I know I can get lunch, and just that process. And it's something that I'm and overcome. I think now, but for sure, like especially like in my mid 20s, going through certain situations in my life, and even in my early 30s, I'm 30, about to be 37, but early 30s, like those situations to where overeating just made sense for me. Like that just, and I knew it wasn't good. That's the crazy part. I knew it wasn't good for me, but it felt right. It's just the only thing that made sense. And
Right.
that was like my way of coping in a way, I guess.
I feel that as you were talking, and you said, I think you said that I knew it wasn't right. And if I'm gonna answer the question, and I'm gonna be honest, man, I'm gonna have to say it. Whatever it's the third episode, my marriage, man. You talking about something that I was doing that I just knew it wasn't right, and it was just like, yo, what are you doing? And you know why? It was pride, man. It was pride. I had an identity that wasn't in myself. I was priding myself on things that I wasn't meant to. Like I'll tell you guys, and I'm speaking from fact here because and Jose will tell you 7 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, around that time, 7, 8 years ago, me and Jose, we were already where we are thinking right now. We were already like, this is not something that was just like, oh, it's happened overnight. Let's look like, oh, let's grow up. Nah, I was, and he was too, and everything, But I lost direction. I'm talking for myself. I'm just using we because Jose's my boy. We go back 10 plus years. And I just found out, I was like, man, we known each other for a while. And as soon as I got involved with a situation that was not meant for me, and I'm gonna say that respectfully because obviously it's not here anymore, right? And I knew it wasn't meant for me, but I went ahead with it. And I went from going in a straight, man, straight. I went from going in a straight direction to kind of like boom, hit a brick wall and just stood there. I didn't go forward. I didn't go backwards. If anything, I just kind of walked around it, right? I went into a circle, if that makes sense. I didn't get to go behind and I started falling back in life and I'm like, oh, now I'm reverting back to a kid, I'm losing my mind. No, I literally went around in a circle until I came back to the presence of where Jose and I were literally 7, 8 years ago, y'all. It sucks, man. And we're sitting here again, like trying to have to relive that situation over. So yeah, I would have to say it's that, and I hope I'm speaking to somebody by sharing that to say is that listen, if you're gonna put your value in somebody else, let it be God. And I'm gonna tell you right now, one of my biggest issues and where I messed up is because I heard what was true for myself. I let somebody else do this, and I took it in, and that became my identity. Is what somebody else said about me, rather than what God said about me and what I believed about myself. And I thought I was pretty cool, and I still do, and I still think I am. For anybody out there, and I put this heavily in my book, you got to have an identity. My first pillar is identity, and you got to be willing to accept the fact is that you are who you are. You are who God made you to be. And especially if you're an adult, stop putting on that front that, oh, I'm what my mother says I am. I'm what my, for me, my wife says I am. I'm not going to be better if my wife says I'm not going to be better. I'm not going to be better if, my uncle, my cat, my dog, whatever it is. Find God, hear his voice. What he confirms in here, live by that. Because if you are a lover and not a fighter, you'll be good. And I'm going to end it there.
That's a perfect ending, man. I couldn't say it any better myself. And to close things out, we're halfway through Exodus, and I want where I'm thinking about it is, it's definitely showing us something that most people don't want to admit, and that's that freedom sounds good until it costs you something. And the truth is, a lot of people don't want freedom; they just want comfort with less pain. And so I think that's a perfect way to end things today. Um, Next episode, episode 4, we'll be continuing our process, our study of Exodus, and finish the second half of it. And then we'll see where we're taking. If we're felt caught to it, we might spend a month on Exodus. Really, we're not in no rush to get through this thing. Like the Bible isn't a regular book, so it's not like you read through it once and you understand it, or you read through one chapter and you could be on a chapter for an entire month. So whatever we're called to do, that's what that's how things are going to go. But we appreciate you guys joining us for this episode, and we hope you come back and continue this journey with us. Anything you want to say to the people?
It's a great study. I think we got us some good stuff, and I agree.
All right, man. All right, I'll lead us out this time. I'll lead us out. You ready? All right. God, give us the strength to step into things we're afraid of. When we get comfortable in places we've outgrown, push us forward. When we doubt ourselves, remind us who you are. And when life feels uncertain, help us trust anyway. Amen. Hey, bro. No, that was. Hey, we're gonna start. When these come out, we're gonna post Steven's book to the chat. So make sure y'all go and purchase it. Support him. It's a great read. I'm not all the way through it. I'm
Oh, you
juggling
started
like
reading it?
10. I'm juggling like 10 things at once, but I'm working through it, and y'all definitely, like I said, we're gonna pin it to the chat. So make sure you guys,
Good
just
book.
to buy a copy, man. It's worth it. It's worth it. Just support it. It's for a good cause. He's
I
not saying
appreciate that.
anything reckless. He's not saying anything reckless. Anything else you want to say, man, before we say goodbye to the people, man? We're just, like I said, at the end of the show, it just feels right to freestyle a little bit, and like I said, the
Man,
people are still listening. They're just they're just hanging out in the back with us.
man, it's a blessing, man. Listen, I'm about to. It's what time is it? I'm gonna show y'all something. I'm back. Okay, it's 2:43. Oh yeah, it's 2:43 where I'm at right now. I am believing in my brother right here. I'm believing in God. I'm believing in y'all. I'm believing in everything right now that's good. That I'm out at the gym, man. I'm not even tired. I got this energy. I'm like, I know what I need to do. And like I said, man, we're talking about all these things. These things may be scary. It's like, well, I'm about to go to the gym. I got bills to pay too. I might lose out on my money for that and everything. But the thing is remember what I told y'all. Something inside of me, man. It's like just something inside of me is like a drive. It's like, hey, you gotta do this. And because I've taken on journeys and trials with God, y'all, I'm gonna tell y'all, I didn't wake up and was just like, hey, I think I'm gonna be a Christian and I think I'm gonna follow after God and I think I'm just gonna go after stuff like that. Nah, it came in a crucible of, am I crazy? And when you get to homelessness, man, and when you get to like I said, the story about that check, man, that check not hitting, and you get into those situations, you have to. When you start hearing a voice inside your head, there's a Holy Spirit, man. I'm telling y'all, there is a spirit that is like really will mess with you and come inside you to where it'll start enchanting you. I don't know how else to say it, man. It's a superpower. There's like a thing going, and I'm saying right now, as it's 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm not tired, and I don't expect to be because here's the thing. The reason why I'm fortifying my body and the reason why this is my second workout, and like I said, we're just freestyling every day, and I'm trying to plant something into you guys that's not of me, but it's from heaven. I worked out earlier today. Well, now it's, this is the next day, but I worked out earlier and now I'm going back for the second time. And the truth be told is because I know that in the future, y'all see what Jose and I are doing right now, man. What if God calls us to do something big? What if God needs us to be way across half the way, across the world, and we got to be here, this place, this place, this place? Do you think we're gonna have the energy for that kind of stuff if we're not at the capacity now? I'm building the capacity for a time that I know is in the future because Jose and I believe in this, and we believe in so much more as well that we know that if this thing hit, we don't want to be caught. I don't want to be caught off guard. We don't want to be caught off guard to where it's not like we don't have the ability to perform. We want to show up now and say that we're worthy of the call, is that we know already right now in this season because we know God is the beginning, the middle, and the end. He called us to it already, so we're going to live in it now. So I'm going to the gym right now because I know in the future I'm already there because He's given it to me. So it's not some idea that I'm just like, hey man, I gotta do this in hopes. Yes, it is in hope, but it's also the faith is that my hope is already knowing that that which has already been said is already completed and finished. I just gotta show up. I gotta become. You know what I mean? So it's just some facts, some wisdom for y'all right there.
Now that's perfect, man. I think like I said to everybody, if you're still listening, we appreciate you guys. You know, you're part of this journey, so you'll see us improve. From podcast one to podcast 100, from show one to show 100. You definitely will
Let's
see
do it. Let's
improvement.
do
We're
it, man. Let's do it for sure.
we're learning, even even our setup now. Like it looks better than it did in episode one to episode two. So it's all a
Yeah,
process, man. But
I'm gonna get a
we
stand so
appreciate.
that way I don't have to keep looking down.
Yeah,
You don't get me
that
wrong.
works, man. It works. But we appreciate you guys. Joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Whew, I love you guys, man. Thanks for showing up.